Hello, Yellow Couch family. Welcome back to another episode. We're almost at episode 50. And today I have a very special guest with me here, Mr. Juma Kimori, the Chief Financial Officer of NMB Bank. Welcome to the couch. How are you doing today?
Thank you very much. I'm doing well, and nice being here with you.
Nice to have you here. I mean, we've all seen recent results coming out, so congratulations. We've heard about the record-breaking year for NMB Bank. How does it feel to be part of that team, and how have you achieved this?
Yeah, so thank you very much, and I'm also very proud of what we have been able to achieve as an organization in terms of the profitability, and it takes a lot to be there. So one of them is having the right strategy and the execution of the same. So we have our medium-term plan that we have been able to articulate, and there is clarity in terms of what exactly we want to achieve, and that has been cascaded across the organization. But again, if you look at it, we have been able to drive customer acquisition, and we have increased the number of customers. We are currently having more than 4 million customers, and that to us is quite a good progress we are making as far as financial inclusion is concerned, but also to drive transaction volumes within the bank. Again, if you look at it from the leadership perspective, I think it all boils down to leadership that we have. So at ExCo level, from the board level, ExCo level, there's clarity in terms of what you want to achieve as an organization. So, and we've been tracking that quite closely. So what you see there is a sentiment of what we have been doing as far as execution of strategy is concerned. But again, the other bit of it is around people engagement and morale across the organization, because no matter what you have as a strategy, whether how good it is, but it all boils down to people's execution, people appreciating it, people accepting it, people buying it, people feel part of it. I think that has been quite a success for us. Yeah, and when you look at our people across the branch network, but also at the head office, there is that morale for execution, which is quite critical. But also we've been able to build capacity of our team to ensure that we remain on top of things. But all in all, NMB as a bank, we have invested much in technology, and just to ensure that we deliver convenient, safe services to our customers. So customers become the key priority for us. And we have been able to improve our services. Of course, I cannot say that we're 100% there, but when you look at what we have done, where we have come from in terms of ensuring that we deliver to customers' expectation, I think we have done a lot in that space. And you will witness that when you go to our branches, for example, now, you will appreciate that the queue has reduced significantly. And what we are doing, as I've alluded to earlier, is to drive more transaction on outside the branches, and that's why you see that we have also invested a lot on the alternative channels. So that put together is what has brought into the profitability that you see. But for us as a bank, it's not all about profitability. It's not about the numbers. There is more than that we also consider as an organization for sustainability purposes.
Wow, it's a phenomenal year for you. I think that hitting a profit level of around 290 billion. So congratulations. But when we look at the banking sector as a whole, we see a lot of banks reporting record years and performing really well. What's changed? How are we suddenly having all these banks performing at a higher level?
Yeah, so when you look at the market as it is, for example, for the year 2021 results, you'll notice that, for example, the top 10 banks recorded profit after tax of around 715 billion. That is an increase year on year, and every bank has reported increase. And this is not only very common for 2021. You will notice fine economies have been impacted by COVID-19, but Tanzania is one of the countries that were not significantly impacted. Of course, given the interdependency, you can't say we were not impacted, but we were impacted.
Yeah.
But you see the way the country has been able to contain the situation is quite different from other countries. But if you look at it again, some of the measures that have been taken by the regulator, specifically Bank of Tanzania, by the government through Bank of Tanzania, to actually ease in some conditions in terms of the credit, in terms of liquidity and capital, I think that has quite helped the banks to sustain the growth. But we have also seen businesses are opening up, 2021. So that has also resulted into the numbers that you see for the industry. So we have seen growth, in the private sector lending, credit to private sector, which is also commendable, and that has resulted to what you see. But also you will notice that if you look at the ambitions of and desire of the government and through the central bank in terms of financial inclusion, every bank is trying to enhance, or rather to reach out to more customers. Yeah. And there is that awareness in terms of the use and utilization of financial services in the country, and that brings in transactional banking and volume of transaction increase. So that translates into the numbers that we see as far as profitability and growth in the banking sector is concerned.
That's pretty cool. So people are using banks more, allowing you as an industry to access more people in more rural areas. But you are the CFO of NMB Bank, and a lot of people would see this role as sort of a back-end role. You're not facing the customer as such. So as a CFO, can you talk to us about how you can impact the performance of an organization if you're not on the front line with the customer? What are you doing on the back end that is helping this major performance?
Yeah, so the CFO role has been changing. It's not about custodianship of the numbers only, but if you look at it, so you'll have CEO, you have ExCo, and if we take, for example, our organization, when you have strategy in place, the key responsibility of CEO is to ensure that the strategy is executed. So as much as we are at the back end, so to say, but what the businesses are driving, for example, when you have retail, you have wholesale, you have treasury, they are driving the business, but you ensure that they drive in the direction of the strategy, what the strategy requires us to do. Okay. And in terms of the direction, so you'll provide and monitor the direction that has been articulated and approved by the board. So our key role, and for example, with the NMB, we have strategy department which reports to CFO. So it is my day-to-day responsibility to ensure that we are traveling in the right direction as far as strategy execution is concerned. But you look at from the performance perspective, while front end is running with the business, the customers, and all these things, we have a role to actually provide MI, management information, and perform data analytics to say, okay, this is the area where we are not doing well. So what is it that we can do quickly to reverse the situation? So we have a very critical role. But again, if you look at it from the CFO perspective, the issues of investment, when it comes to investment, because as I alluded to earlier, investment in technology is something that you can't run away from. And we have been investing quite a lot in terms of technology as we aim to digitalize everything, to get outreach in terms of reaching customers digitally. So I play a very big role. CFO play a very big role in terms of financing those and making sure that we invest and finance what is aligned with the strategy, but also what is making sense to the business. But also, if you look at it, now when you come to the performance, like what you have seen, we have published. So you'll have revenue, and then you have cost. Cost is my baby, because every day I look at cost. And when you look at our numbers, for example, you will notice that our cost to income ratio is around 47%. It's 47% as 2021. What does that tell you? That actually tells you that we are very much efficient as a bank. And that is purely the role of CFO. So it's the business is bringing income, revenue, customer retention, customer onboarding, then we say keep it safe and make sure that whatever you are spending is making sense, is for business purposes, and that's very critical. Because if you don't have a CFO of such, then whatever you will be bringing as income can end up being, so you'll be having like cost to income ratio of maybe 70% or 80%. So that tells you that CFO has a very big role in terms of the numbers you see. Even though we are sitting at the back end of the organization.
So the role is changing.
Definitely.
We believe that a CFO is sitting and preparing reports, but there's a lot more happening.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And you started talking about, and I've got the NMB numbers results, here that I wanted to go through today.
Yes.
A little bit. You started talking about cost to income ratio.
Yes.
But there's a lot of people out there with the recently published numbers that might not know exactly how to read those financial statements that are posted. Could you give some pointers? How do I know if I've put my money in a certain bank and the statement comes in the newspaper, what should I be looking at to know this is a performing bank or not?
Yeah, so thank you very much. And I think from the finance perspective, purely, someone may look at the numbers in their absolute terms. And of course, you're talking about 8.7 trillion balance sheet. You talk about profit after tax, 289, 290. That's a significant number in absolute terms. But then I think it is critical that people look at some key performance metrics. So for example, for the bank, one of the key aspects there is the efficiency ratio.
Okay.
So that is cost to income ratio. Your cost to income ratio is quite critical, and that tells how much you spend on the income that you earn.
Okay. So
globally, the best I think is around 50% to say that that's probably the optimal. Now, if you find that you're spending more than 50% of what you earn, then you need to look at your efficiency levels. I mean, what is it that you can do much better to ensure that you don't spend a lot of what you are earning?
And this is on non-interest expenses,
that is
right?
That is purely on cost to income ratio. Non-interest, I'll probably come to that.
Okay.
That aspect. So that is cost to income ratio.
Yeah.
And when you see, organization reporting cost to income ratio above 60%, then you start questioning efficiency there.
Okay.
Then the other bit you have mentioned about non-funded income, and of course, this is to say your organization, rather bank, should be able to diversify the sources of income. So you have interest income and then non-interest income, which are coming through transactional banking, and that gives you, sustainability in terms of the income that you're earning. Because reliance much on the interest income only is not sustainable, given what you have seen, pressure in terms of reduced interest rate and so on. So a bank should be able to diversify the sources of income, and that is to say the mix between non-funded income and interest income. And then I think the other bit that, so you have investors who are also investing in this company. So you're talking about shareholders,
okay,
who want the return at the end of the day.
Yep.
Right. So return on shareholders' equity is very critical as a measure in terms of what the return, what goes to the investors at the end of the day, the capital owners, the shareholders, right? So, for example, a bank of our size, of course, we reported 22% return on equity, which is 22% of what they invest, we return to them.
Okay.
And then you're saying, okay, look at it. Your balance sheet size is of this much. So for bank of ours is 8.7 trillion. We closed the year at that level. Now, the question, how much do you get from that asset you are holding, right? So that is return on average asset. And for us, we landed at 3%. I think average market is around 2%. So those are some of the measures that a person reading the financials need to understand in terms of the efficiency of the organization, but also in terms of the return that the organization gives back to the shareholders, but also then I think one thing that is also very critical, things have changed, have evolved in terms of how we measure the impact of the organization. It's not only about profitability. So you look at things like contribution to the community. And for a bank of ourselves, we have a policy where we set aside 1% of profit after tax as a corporate social responsibility or corporate social investment. So like for last year, we spent more than 2 billion just on health facilities, on school, desk and roofing. We spent on financial education, awareness. So that is what you give back to the community. But also as an organization, you're operating in a country, you need to be a social citizen. And the amount of tax that you pay, you recall last year we were awarded the best taxpayer among the large taxpayers in the financial sector. So the first large taxpayer in the financial sector is NMB, and that is because of the tax that we pay to the government. That also goes into economic development in the country.
Indirectly.
Yes, of course, indirectly. But you see, we have roads being built everywhere. And then you look at what areas you finance and so on. So I think that is all about what I can say in terms of what makes it look like you are a bank of that performance, but again in terms of how can one interpret the financial as published. So I think it's not only about the numbers you saw, but again in terms of the social impact that you have as an organization.
I want to touch on one thing.
Yes.
There's one important statistic I always look at when looking. This is called the non-performing loans. Can you explain NPL or non-performing loan on layman terms? What does that mean? When we say, I think you've got non-performing loans of 3% or 3.5%, what does that mean?
Yes, I forgot to mention that. That is also one of the measures. So when you give a loan, and this is pretty much talking about the standards now, International Financial Reporting Standard, and also regulatory requirements. So when you book a loan, right? So I disperse a loan to you. So standards require me, the International Financial Standard require me to, to recognize, to say, okay, possibly so and so will not pay this loan, right? So you start, it's a way of being prudent. So you're saying, okay, this can probably be a bad customer or a bad loan, right?
We won't receive.
Yes, we won't receive everything that we have dispersed.
Yes.
So that is also in line with what regulator is requiring, the Bank of Tanzania. So when you see the NPL is a loan that is in arrears, some customers have not been able to meet their repayment schedules, obligations. So you say this is probably will not be paid or certain amount will be paid. So that is non-performing loan. And then, so when you talk about non-performing loan, NPL ratio is purely a ratio between what you think will not come through as far as your loan exposure against your total loan, right? So that's just a ratio. Yes. And then you have charge. So you're saying, okay, if this is not coming, then how much can I reduce my profit with? And that you see impairment charge there.
Okay.
So that is, in a simple way, simple explanation, is what you think will not come through altogether over the total portfolio that you have.
So if you have dispersed total loans of 100 million, you have a 3% NPL, it means you're expecting 3 million of that 100 million will not come back.
Will not come back.
Thank you. I just wanted to make that clear for our viewers.
That's exactly the point, yes.
So thanks for taking us through and
so
helping.
That's one of the measure in terms of the quality of your asset.
Yeah.
So that's one of the key measure in terms of the quality.
No, definitely, and it's something to watch out for, because if you're keeping your money somewhere and they're giving out loans and with a high NPL,
Yes.
be careful is essentially the point.
Sure.
So I wanted to just talk a little bit and get to know you a little bit as well. Yes, you are the CFO of NMB, but I believe there is more to you than just your career. Maybe you can give us a little bit of understanding of how you have managed to reach such a prestigious position.
Oh, yeah, thank you very much. Just in brief, to give a bit of background, you know, I started my career with one of the big fours in the auditing and finance, specifically PricewaterhouseCoopers, 15 and a half years ago. And then I joined financial. By that time, I specialized in the audit, external audit for the financial services, so that specifically on banks. And then I joined African Banking Corporation as head of internal audit.
Okay.
After that, I joined Barclays. Barclays Bank now is ABSA. So I worked with Barclays for 7 years to the level of regional director for internal audit, providing oversight of 5 countries. So chief internal auditors for Botswana, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Ghana, and they are reporting to me. So 5 countries were reporting to me. Then the opportunity opened at NMB. I got into NMB 3 years back, 2018. So I've been at NMB as the chief internal auditor.
Okay.
For 3 years. Then the opportunity for CFO happened, and I applied. I went through a competitive, environment, and I think what is very important is in terms of having aspiration and to say, this is where I want to be in the next 3 years. And to me, that has been quite helpful, and you commit to it. And when opportunity happens, you apply for it.
Do you write it down, or
I normally write down.
You write it down.
I normally write down in terms of. By the way, when I normally write it down and discuss with my line manager to say, this is where I want to be. What does it take to be there? And I have those conversations. So I keep on updating myself in terms of where do I make progress to be where I want to be? What is it that I need to do more to be there? And I think one of the things that building trust with leadership from the board and with management is critical in the journey. So that trust and people have confidence in you makes your life a bit easier. Of course, you go through the interviews, quite challenging like any other person, but I think for the board to make a decision that, okay, look, we appoint this person, is more of the trust that they have and confidence they have in you, the professionalism that you have, the ambition to grow the business. So for me, I think being in internal audit didn't make me run away from the business understanding, and also support the business to drive the strategy, to execute, to perform. And that is very critical. I think it's a call for other internal auditors as well. That, being internal auditor doesn't mean that you stay away from the business. I think it is a time for internal auditors as well to look at how they can change that attitude. And of course, I think one very critical aspect is having right attitude and behavior within the organization. I think people will see you, and people will see that, okay, look, this position, I think this person A is the one that can support us to go forward.
That is a pro tip that you gave there. Write down where you want to be in 5 years.
Yes.
Let your line manager know, and they'll tell you how to get there. And I think everyone should use that if they're looking to grow in their career. I'd like to take us through to the next section, which is the trivia section. We've just got a few questions to ask you to dig a little bit deeper behind Juma Kimori. So my first question would be, if I deposited $10 million in your account tomorrow, what would you do?
$10 million.
We can make it 100 if you want.
Yeah, for me, I think what I'll do is, of course, in my account, I'll keep it for some time.
Get interest.
Get interest, but just to decide where I want to invest. You know, at my age, of course, you look for investment for retirement. And therefore, once I've decided, I will make sure that that money ends. And definitely, I know avenues where I can invest and get better earning. So definitely, I will give it a month or so. 10 million, where can I invest? What will give me the highest earning? What is best for my retirement? I think that's what I can do. But of course, if you look at it, there are avenues like fixed deposit, there are avenues like government securities, of which I will go for with the 10 million. Yeah.
Well,
but also, I think the other bit that I will also do as part of, as what I'm doing currently as well, to support the community. I think I'm also good at, you know, providing support. For example, back in my village, I think I provide support there, and I think that I will have a portion that will be directed to support a community that I respect.
Nice. I can tell you've got a very cool head, because if you put $10 million in my account tomorrow, I might not sit for 1 month.
You may disappear.
I might disappear for a bit. So you're the right person for the role. Another question, what is your greatest fear in life?
Oh, wow. That's a tough one. Of course, fear to fail. Fear to fail, and you know, when things don't go well as I expect, I normally, sometimes in some situations, I fail to you know, to sustain, or rather to hold calm, and you know, you may end up panicking for some few minutes, or but you get back. So my fear is failure. I fear to fail, and I always try to do my best not to fail. When of course, sometimes I fail.
When's the last time you failed? Final question. You gave it to me.
Yeah, so I recall, no, I've failed several times in terms of meeting deadlines. You know, with our work, you know, you will always have deadlines. And when you fail to meet deadline, for me, it pains me a lot. I think the other bit is you know, I failed at a personal level. Of course, probably may not need to mention that, to support certain colleague while I was in a position to. So it also pained me a lot. But you know, failure is part of life, the way I take it. Sometimes I fear, sometimes I take it as a challenge. And then I think what is also very critical for me is when I fail, I reflect whether is it purely something that was within my reach and within my ability to maneuver or whatever. And when I reflect on that, when it is outside what I could have done, then that gives me a bit of encouragement to say, okay, it was outside my control. But when it is purely my failure as individual, then I think that's where I get much of a challenge.
Nice. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. If someone puts $10 million in your account, sit back and relax for 1 month, and don't be afraid to fail. Thank you, Juma, for being with us today. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. There you have it, the man behind the beautiful reports in the newspaper. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Yes, I will. Thanks.